Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest instalment of VHS Showdown.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Where we delve into the realms of ancient VHS to try and find some classics you know, some hidden gems, and perhaps some classics you didn't know. I think maybe today that falls into this category. So let's introduce ourselves first. I'm Murph.
I'm Tarby.
I'm Alan.
I'm Lee.
And this week's movie was picked by Alan. So Alan, you were given the year of 1980.
I certainly was.
Tough one.
And what absolute 80s classic did you pick, Alan?
Well, I went for the all-time classic featuring Superman himself, not Superman 2, but Somewhere in Time.
Somewhere in Time, yes.
Yes.
The absolute classic. Now, what was everyone's feelings of this film? Had anyone seen it? Was anyone familiar with it?
Never even heard of it.
I've never even heard of it.
I had only seen it through reels on Facebook. Occasionally it would pop up and I was like, that looks interesting.
So you were very fortunate then that was the year that you landed on. Did you know it was that year when you got it now?
Nope, I just happened to see it and I was like, well, actually, I wouldn't mind watching that anyway, so...
Well, I was completely unfamiliar with it as well, but what drew you to this film, Al? Anything particular?
I'm a sucker for a love story, Tone. As you know, I'm a man of my heart.
Yeah.
And I like things like that.
I like it a lot.
Okay, brilliant.
So
Well,
this was a genuine choice, like it wasn't to try and, go the opposite way or...
There was part of me that actually wanted to watch it, and
Part of you is being a twat.
for shits and giggles.
It got us all unaware, didn't it? So
well, this is why we're here. You know, some weeks we might be watching an absolute 80s classic that everyone knows and loves, and other weeks it may be, something that none of us have seen. But this is what we're here and what we're doing. So before we get into what we thought of it...
I do need to tell you this because, like I said, I have this revelation to make, I'm afraid. So, due to sort of family issues this evening, things went over. I watched most of the film last night, and admittedly, I fell asleep. But that was because I was knackered. So, I tried to finish it tonight, and I've had to watch it on almost like speeding a bit. So, it's like moving in double speed. And then stopping for what I think are key
Well,
bits.
you are making a mockery.
Yes, you made absolute mockery of this podcast.
I taped 20-minute workout on my machine and played it back at high speed, so it only took 10 minutes. I got a great workout.
I'm being honest, and I want you to know that I've watched a lot of it, so I've got a lot to contribute. But when it comes to the end, I'm going to rely on you boys. And I've seen the end, but I'm sure there's probably, a few bits that I've missed by speeding through it.
Well, luckily the rest of the VHS team take this seriously,
What a joke.
and we all watch this. We're all
I'm
committed
sorry,
to
yeah,
our listeners,
it's bad.
apart from Tarby.
I will run you through the entire story if you want right now.
Yes.
Well, Lee's got to edit this, so let's not make it
Well, I think we
the
should.
film
because-
length, but yeah, I'm
Okay.
hearing about it.
So here's the storyline for those
So-
of you who aren't familiar with the absolute classic Somewhere in Time.
Picture yourself in the 1980s. Let's go back to 1980s. Everyone's, using fizz spray in your hair, like flock of seagulls are topping the charts with something I would
Real
imagine.
detail.
You're really painting a picture. There's so much rich detail.
Go into incredibly descriptive details of the story so we all know.
And then in 1980, the classic itself breaks at the cinema, Somewhere in Time. So we open up in Chicago in 1972.
He is going to talk through the whole
I'm
fucking
gonna
film.
fucking tell you. Christopher Reed's character, his name is Richard, right? He's a playwright, and he's just finished his successful play. It's fantastic, gone down well. Just after, when they're all like having a bit of a glass of wine, mysterious old woman approaches him with a watch, and she's like, "Come back to me, Richard. Come back to me." And he's like, "Who the fuck is this old
But he's
woman?"
never met her, has he?
He's like,
He
"Who the
doesn't know
fuck
who
is
she
this old woman?" Anyway, she fucks off. She goes back to this big fucking hotel called the Grand Hotel. So 8 years later, so that would take us where, Tab?
1980,
Yeah,
yeah.
fucking right. 72 plus 8, that's 1980.
Quick maths.
So, fantastic maths. So this Richard is having a bit of a crisis in his life, and he's like, fucking hell, I need to reevaluate myself. I am going to go and take a little bit of a sabbatical somewhere. So he goes and ends up in the same hotel that this woman goes to 8 years previous.
Wow.
To the Grand Hotel. He meets this old boy there who's a bellboy. He's been there since like the fucking 1910s or something. Old boy.
Yeah.
And
I
he's
wonder whether that'll come back in the story.
who knows? Who knows? But the guy afterwards, he says, Have I met you before, sir? Have I met you before, sir? And he's like, that's impossible. Impossible, he says. So, like, as this Richard is settling into his, like, life in this hotel, he goes and wanders around the Hall of Fame, and he stumbles across this rather lovely picture of this old actress. A lovely headshot of this woman. Anyway, he falls deeply in love with this picture, by the way. Literally, immediately.
This bit is weird as fuck. He's, like, staring
Immediately.
at that picture.
Fair play though, she is fucking mint.
Jane Seymour in this
She's
is smoking hot.
She is like, I was watching it like, wow.
She is ridiculously hot.
She is so fit.
And she's English American. She was born in England, and was she raised in America, or when did she go across there?
Oh, he's in Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman Times when she moved to.
She was in
to
Dr.
America.
Quinn.
Oh, she
Because
was.
it took me a while to realise, obviously, she was Solitaire in Live and Let Die, which is one of my favourite Bond films.
Yes, she was
as
a
well.
Bond girl, wasn't she?
She's voted number 10 fittest Bond girl that there is.
I think she's one of the
Number
fittest
10.
women I've ever seen.
In
She's
that,
so
in that
attractive.
yeah, it was just like breathtaking.
she-
I'm not surprised he was obsessed with her.
I want to know what's up with her hair, because she's got massively long hair in all the films I've seen, but she always wears it up. All right,
She might wonder what's up with your hair.
I wonder what's up with my hair these days.
We'll say as well, Christopher Reeve is a handsome chap.
No, he
He's
looks
a fucking
fucking
chap.
odd, man.
He's
No,
like
no.
old-fashioned muscle man.
Because
Like,
I've seen him.
He's a big guy, like.
He's got some paws on him, I'll tell you that. I thought that in suit.
Paws.
What is he like? Got to be like 6'5",
He's 6'4".
6'4".
But he looks like, I know you so well with your glasses on, when you take them off, you look weird. People who take glasses off, who wear them all the time, they look weird.
Clark Kent.
And he looks weird without glasses, and he doesn't look
He
happy.
looks
he looks like
like
Superman, doesn't
his,
he?
his face doesn't look real. That's what it reminds me of. You know that bit in Poltergeist when that bloke pulls his face off? But you can tell because it's cut away to like a dummy. That's what his face looks like. He looks like he's not a real
He
face.
looks like a skeleton. He's got a face.
He looks like a skeleton with a fake face on top of it.
Yeah. But sometimes he can look really handsome. Like sometimes you get to see a shot of him and think that is one dashing guy, but then other times he just looks fucking odd, man. But they had an affair, didn't they? They
Did
were
they?
actually,
Did they?
Is that
they
right?
kept it a secret from the crew, but they actually fell in love.
Is that right?
They did.
Because
And,
she named a kid after it.
Yes, well
Superman.
they kept it.
Funny name for a kid.
Man Seymour.
No. She was like 28. He was 29. You know, they met.
If you can't fall in love on the set of Somewhere in Time,
Yeah.
you can't fall in love anywhere.
Yeah, well, that's a romantic set, isn't it?
It's
That's going
just
to be.
oozes
But anyway,
romance.
back to so he falls in love with the picture on the wall.
Just by merely seeing this bloody picture,
Yeah.
and I mean, like, he is smitten.
They-
All of his time.
it's
like
They're-
visibly sweating.
He is like
It's
looking
weird.
at-
The
I mean,
extent of their special effects to show the moment he walks through some shaft of light. Do you notice
Yes.
that?
Yeah,
He's coming
yeah,
through
yeah.
oh
and
yeah,
he's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. They
and then
need
he-
to sort the windows out in there.
Yeah,
because
well-
it's going to fade that picture.
That bloke showing him round at the time, though, isn't he? And he just stops just to stare at this thing. You would be a bit like, mate.
And where's the name
what are
plaque
you
gone?
doing?
Wouldn't that have been a bit easier for him? He had to go to the library and do all that shit.
Yeah,
But
well,
if he just had a
well,
name
well.
plaque, he'd have been like, oh,
well,
yeah.
that's it. I mean, like, he was so taken aback by this picture that he went to go speak to the old bellboy who had been there since the 1910s. Anyway, so this guy was like, that's it. Used to be the old actress, and he was like, fucking hell. She did a play at the theatre house at this hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking a posh hotel. It's got a fucking
Yes.
theatre house, like.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's like, I've got to find out more. Goes to the library, flicks through all, like, you know, I don't know if he's looking through microfiche, but he's well versed in looking through all of, like, the little, like, cards in the library.
Yeah.
So finds out a lot more about this woman.
Very versatile hands for flicking a card.
So he's like, well, fucking hell, I find this real connection with this woman. So he then goes off to talk to his old professor from his university days
Yes.
to discuss the possibility of time travel.
The professor had mentioned in passing during one of
Yeah.
their lessons that he'd time travelled at some point.
just in passing.
Well,
He's a kook, isn't he? I mean, you'd be like, seriously, mate? Well, I'm not saying it's impossible.
well, he is, because this is where I was like thinking, oh, now this film's going to get interesting when I was watching this. We're getting to the time travel bit. I was like, how's he going to do it? Is it going to be a vehicle? Is he going to make a portal? No, he's going to lay on a bed and fucking think his way back in fucking
That is
time.
poor. It
I
is poor.
didn't mind that.
That's
It was interesting.
I actually
but it was
thought,
poor.
I actually thought that like Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Right, got a DeLorean.
yeah.
Right.
Iconic.
Yeah, TARDIS or whatever.
Iconic.
Like, yeah, but like I don't know. There's
About
something
lying
quite...
on his bed and thinking his way back in
man.
time.
Yeah.
I'm glad,
But
I'm
then
glad
he's-
he picked up on it because he used a 20th century device at the time to record
yeah.
himself, play it back to himself. Of course, it was never going to work. He's got a fucking tape
But this is the
recorder
thing,
going.
though, it's like, yeah, alright, I don't know. Maybe, like, in some remote viewing, sort of like, yeah, you could perhaps send your consciousness perhaps back in time to view something. But he buys a
Transform a
fucking
house.
suit. His physical entity and the money in his pocket, he thought that all back in time.
Well-
It's bollocks.
Well, we should just say, actually, so in order for him to travel back in time, it's not just a case of him lay on the bed thinking about it. He has to fully immerse himself in the time period in which he has to go back.
Yeah.
So he went and bought a suit from the 1910s, 1912s or whatever.
It's a good suit.
And he had all the money from then, and he bought himself a fucking hat, a lovely hat. which I feel we mention quite a lot on this podcast, is hats.
There's been some good hats in the films.
Been some good hats.
I love hat chat.
So obviously he toils for a long time trying to get himself back in time.
He's like feverishly.
Oh,
He's like,
He's thinking toward. He's sweating.
you're at the hotel. It's 1912.
I'm in 1912. It's almost like he's wanking himself back in time.
Yeah. But of course, it doesn't work the first time, and then he goes back down to like see this picture again, and then he notices the logbook in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah,
and he
yeah,
notices
yeah.
his signature, and he's like, "Fuck! I must have been there because I signed into this fucking book."
That bit was quite cool. I quite like that. That was a bit like, oh yeah.
So then that was the final piece of the puzzle for him to go back. Then he was like, he got back into his room, hid the tape recorder under the bed, and he was like, I was fucking definitely there. So he's like, 1912. He wakes back up and emerges in the past. A fish out of water.
Yes.
He was.
He wasn't quite shocked enough, though, was it?
He wakes up in a bedroom, and obviously there are occupants of that room wandering around. And he hid, for such a large man who possibly could have played American football, he hid behind a wing-back chair.
Little chair.
just like casually just sat there.
And just to tempt fate, he was popping his head up a couple of times.
Oh,
as well, wasn't
he wasn't being sly.
No, I'll get back down. I don't know. I'm a real kid of the 80s, and I don't know about time machines and everything. I need them, I think. I'm really finding it hard to buy
It's
into
the worst
this.
time travel scene of all time.
He thought himself into the past.
It's so lazy. Even Goodnight Sweetheart, you walk down an alley.
Yeah.
And then this is very much like
mind
Goodnight
you,
Sweetheart,
it is,
isn't
yeah,
it?
it
Really?
is, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But Goodnight Sweetheart was early 90s, so...
Well, yeah, but I'm saying time travel stories. You know,
Oh, right, yeah.
a
Well,
romantic
it's because they come. Yeah, I mean, even a flash of light would have done.
anything.
You know, you went to sleep.
I
mean,
still
to be
quite
fair,
liked it.
The
I
doctor
still
did
quite
say,
liked it.
To be
I
fair
don't-
to
I
it, the
thought it
doctor
was-
did say, I hypnotised my mind. So there is an element of hypnosis, but then hypnosis doesn't equals time travel.
In the book that it's based on, he had a brain tumour. And this would have been way better if they'd done this
It's
in the film.
ambiguous to whether he was.
He was having some sort of do you know what I mean, mental breakdown, which makes more sense, I think, than just him thinking about. But look, we're in it now, so look, he's
makes it
thought
very
his way
clever.
back. Yeah, if he's got a brain tumour, it's a bit clever.
But an unspoken one.
Well, that does come in at the end,
well,
isn't it?
potentially. Well, we'll get there. Then.
Yeah.
So goes back in time.
Goes down into the lobby and tries to look for the lady that he fell so madly in love with. Obviously, he goes stumbling around the hotel, bumped into the little bellboy, and that boy loved his ball. He kept playing with his ball.
See, that boy that you see first in shot, I thought it was one of those plastic things that you put money in. He looked fake. That kid, I freaked out when he threw the ball. I thought it was actually a dummy. I'm not kidding you.
Maybe
You're a
someone put
dummy.
money in him. So he obviously spends a bit of time going around the hotel and stumbles down towards the waterfront, and he happens upon this beautiful lady stood next to the side of the lake, and he's like, oh my God.
I mean, she was only missing a parasol. That was like the picture perfect sort of.
This was all creepy and stalky and a bit weird, and if you did it in real life, you know, she would not have reacted in the way that she did, I don't think.
There was a lot of it that I was a bit like, wow.
Well, the weirdest
that
part
is-
of this film is the unbelievable relationships these two have, because he's
Yes.
like real stalker, and she's like, "Oh no, I love you." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He
it's
doesn't come
bizarre.
across well, I don't think.
No.
He comes across really like he
I mean,
is a stalker.
just to clear it, so he meets her at this gazebo, like, you know, she's sat there looking all pretty and lovely backdrop, and they go walking. But then she's got this sort of chaperone, hasn't she, who's like
A manager.
looked after her. Well, yeah, a manager who's. Does he know that he's a time traveller?
I thought he was a time traveller as
Yeah,
well.
that's it, yeah.
now that would have
yeah.
been good.
Yeah.
That would have been far, far better, but he's not.
She's like, there's a man that's going to come into my life. I was like, motherfucker, he's from the future as well, and he's been here longer and knows the crack.
Well, she said when she first saw him, when he came over, she was like, is it you?
Yes.
Is it you?
Yeah,
And it was
I
like,
thought
what
this
does
thing
that
was
mean?
taking.
Yeah.
I thought things were
What
taking
does
a
that
real
mean?
downhill turn then, though. I thought,
Yeah.
but it picked itself up. But what I was clarifying earlier was just when we were saying about stalkerish is how weird he does look when the manager's trying to walk her away.
Yes.
Oh, and he,
And he's just in the background. He's like,
Yeah.
he's like, stop walking, man.
It goes on for
So
ages.
fucking Looney Tunes, like.
So basically, yeah, the manager takes the two of them apart and starts walking with the woman. And yeah, Christopher Reeve just really weirdly follows them like 10 feet behind, just like
Really open.
walking like an absolute sort of madman, sort of psychopath, about sort of 10 feet behind for ages.
Yeah.
For literally like the entire journey it takes him to get back to the hotel, he's still fucking there. You'd have called the police.
It's not a
Or
short
you'd have done
journey.
Something.
Or you
No.
just say, fuck this, I'm walking with you.
Yeah.
But he walks behind like a real stalker.
So that whole bit was a bit sort of strange.
He blags his way into a restaurant in the evening to try and get to the table with the lady on there, like. And then obviously the manager gets him kicked out of there again because he's
We
not
have a
supposed
little
to-
dance.
Yeah, they have a little dance in there. They
Oh,
have
he
a little
cuts
dance.
in really weirdly again,
Yeah,
doesn't it? And if
yeah.
you were her, you'd be like, just fuck off, man. Do you know what I mean? This
If
is
you were
weird.
that other
the
bloke,
fuck
you'd be
with
like, you're taking the piss.
Yeah, yeah.
He did a full 360. Like, what?
Yeah, but the guy didn't. He just sort of like danced off on his own. It's a fucking
Saving some face.
a Disney animatronic like on a fucking loop.
But he says to her, when can I see you again? And she's like, okay. And so how's she falling for this guy? Like, what has he shown her apart from his like 6'4" stature and weird skeleton face?
His pectoral muscles are poking through his old suit. Like,
well, I imagine he's hung. I mean, he is Superman, isn't he? So he is going to be absolutely packing. I would have thought.
Well, you reckon like because you're muscly, you've got a massive dick? Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
exactly. But he's 6'4". He's Superman. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Do you know how he got buff for being Superman?
No.
David Prowse, Darth Vader.
Yeah.
He weightlifting and he got him up to
Darth Vader.
He's got some weight, didn't he?
He got him into shape for the film, basically, because he was real thin before Superman.
Yeah. He is a fine figure of a man.
But he's like
Make your
classic
mind up,
60s
man.
Batman buff, though, isn't he? There's no like six-pack ripping through that material, but he is.
No, he's like
80s.
80s buff. Yeah,
Oh,
it's just his weird face, isn't it? So they have the dance, and then they get separated again.
And then we get into like the middle of the film where it's basically him like trying to schmooze her. So it's like the following morning, he wakes up on the porch of this like massive hotel, and he goes back to her room in the morning. He's like knocking on the door, and he's like, "I want to see you today. I want to see you today." She's trying to fob him off.
Not very much.
Well, no, but she eventually gives in and say, "Oh, we'll go for a horse ride later."
Yeah, she says, "Meet me at 1."
So obviously they meet up, and then they have a lovely day out.
It's a montage, isn't it?
Oh, it's magical.
And then he's literally talking to her, and they've fallen in love by the end of this thing. And she says, "Oh, it's 1:30. I better go by." So in half an hour, they've done all that stuff. They've like been on boats or whatever, and down the pier, or whatever.
Did they need
I think
montage
what
that
you've
half
really got to look at this film is it's a written in the stars film, isn't it? And they're supposed to be connected somehow through time. It's just going to happen. It's just meant to be. And
30 minutes though.
I don't know.
I think that's why he found such a connection with that picture as well, isn't it? Because obviously there is something like a love across time and universe and space. It finds each other.
Galaxies colliding.
They were meant to be together. Like, because I mean, he fucking loved that picture.
He loved the picture more than any man has loved the picture.
I think he loved the picture more than he loved her.
But if it, even beyond the time travel, which I do struggle with, the other bit that I struggle with about is this fact that like she's obviously interested in him, but she's a bit dismissive of him. Then they go for 30 minutes. And then after that, she's like, she's properly in love. And then she goes on stage and forgets her fucking lines and just talks a load of crap about him. He's sat in the audience. She's only been with him for 30 minutes before.
To rapturous applause, that pile of bollocks got, by the way.
Yeah.
It did, yeah.
Everybody was really impressed with it.
Interesting story. The writer of that script and those lines, who wrote the original book, when they filmed that bit, that was a reshoot and Christopher Reeves wasn't there. So he sat where Christopher Reeves was. And he said he became so emotional that he burst into tears and had to run home to his wife after her and her performance.
And made love to her straight away.
I
over
imagine.
the kitchen counter.
Pushed off all the everything on the floor.
Happening. It's happening. You're having one. You're having one.
Oh, good God. Not so romantic.
You're having one.
Is that not romantic?
You're having one night.
Pull him down like me.
Oh,
Pull him down.
So she goes off script.
Yeah, so
Just like Al.
so she goes off script, and then eventually he leaves the theatre just before the end of the play, I think, and he gets confronted by the manager of.
He is dastardly, that manager.
He is, isn't he? He's
Moustache twiddling, dastardly villain.
He's got white gloves on.
Yeah. Twirling his fucking cane.
And
like,
his,
you know,
and his
that sort of
hoods
shit.
are proper like brown trousers and braces. And
Yeah. He's a classic villain.
The punch they give you is it's like one like.
That's in the trailer, and I was like, I can't wait to see the rest of that fight. That was it.
They did not pay for a fight coordinator for that. They were like, we'll work out in a day.
He literally gets strong armed by two guys, and one of them lumps him in the stomach, and that's it.
I mean, he takes that punch like a champ. You know what I mean?
He goes down like a sack of shit. It's just from a stomach punch.
He's just been winded by two burly men. Like he wakes up in a barn like a fucking princess who has been tied up on a railway track. Do you know what I mean?
Hog-tied.
Yeah, he's got like proper fucking tied around him, like fucking brilliant.
And then he cuts the rope, doesn't he, with a broken lamp.
And then he makes his way back to the hotel. We should say that this is the morning after now, and obviously after he's been beaten up, the manager has gone back to the woman and he's been like, "Oh, he's left you. I told you he's like the rest." And obviously she was like devastated. But then, the morning after, she's walking across the lawn and he turns her, "Richard!" Richard, and like they all come and meet up, like, and it's fucking fantastic.
This is where it gets foggy for me now.
And
This is where it gets sexy.
they have such a passionate kiss. That
do.
kiss.
They go up to his room,
It's
don't they?
erotic. I mean, he fucking lays her down. It's even before he lays her down. It's in the doorway. He's got her against the fucking wall, and he's like undoes her hair, and he's like, and like she's like, no, Richard, no, and then he's just like, shut the fuck up. And like,
You're having one.
yeah. It's happening, Richard. It's happening. And then obviously, like, we get super like soft focus, like Vaseline on the lens, all like sexy as fuck. He's laying her naked body down, and this is on top, and they're riding each other, and he's like, oh,
Look me in the eye when you're saying this.
and
It doesn't show that much detail. I swear it's sort of cut away.
Is it not?
No,
I think you've imagined a picture of this.
I mean, at the end, she squirts so much. It's insane.
Jesus
It's
Christ.
insane.
This is not gonna. This is
they
not.
don't show that, but I
They
imagine,
don't show it.
But I imagine, yes, she would have. Yes.
So obviously, after they've had this night of like incredible passionate sex,
Morning of passion.
It's 5:30 in the morning, isn't
morning
it?
of passionate sex. They like both lay on the floor, you know, and they're like next to the fire or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, Richard, I hope that you will marry me. Oh, make a decent woman of me or whatever." And he's like, "Yeah, of course, yeah."
She's talking about how much she doesn't like his suit.
Yeah.
So he puts it on for
And he's
her.
like, "What's the matter with my fucking suit?" And he puts his hand in his pocket. What does he find, Harp?
Coins out.
He finds a coin, but a 1972 coin, and then that was it. His reality is being shattered.
He's like,
because-
I start flying back through time, and she's like, Richard!
I want to know, what did she see?
What did she see?
She's like, Richard! She's like screaming.
Was he like?
Yeah.
Do you think he flew backwards, or do you think he like faded into like smoke or something?
If he was doing what they were showing, he was being sucked down some sort of tube or something. He was like being pulled away from her, wasn't he? She was getting smaller, so he was being sucked somewhere.
They did mention at the beginning that after the play in 1912, this woman's life was never the same.
She was depressed. after
miserable.
that.
And I would imagine seeing a man disintegrate into, like, or be atomised in front of her eyes
Yes.
is pretty much going to do that to someone.
The true love of her life, yes.
So here's my question then, because I think obviously that's it. I pretty much saw it all.
I've seen everything. Yeah, I've seen it all.
Do you think she went looking for him? She didn't know he was time traveller. Do you think she happened to see his play in the paper or something? It's like, fucking hell, it's him.
Yeah, well, they never explained it, do you? She'd be, oh, it's that bloke who had a fucking one night stand with that guy that, like, talked me into banging him.
80 years ago.
And then vaporised in front of me.
And she said nothing.
Four words. Come back to me. She could have sat him down. He was celebrating. He was in a good mood.
To be like, listen, when you come back in time, don't put your hand in your pocket and get this fucking penny out.
Yes!
Just tell you that.
He was very pedantic about the time in the room, wasn't he? But not.
Would she know it was the penny, though?
To her, from her perspective, he put his hand in his pocket, pulled his hand out, looked at it, and then fucking vanished into thin air.
She didn't know what the fuck was happening. Oh.
But
So obviously he goes back in time and he's again distraught,
Miserable.
sweating.
He's the
He
most
sweats.
miserable anyone's ever been.
He's so miserable, he dies.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's so upset. He had a one night
He
stand.
doesn't eat for a week and then he dies.
Yeah.
Or do you think the time travel took it out of him? Because that's what the professor said.
Yeah.
It was like.
And also there is the thought that he was ill anyway.
If you go by
to
the
begin
book,
with, to begin with.
if the book thing, which they should have kept, I don't know what it is. He should, he had a fucking brain tumor. That's why he went to, and then that would have made sense. Then he died. But the way it is played in the film, he discovers time travel. He's the first man in the world to ever travel properly back in time, or second man in the world that we know of who's travelled back
By
in time.
sleeping.
Goes back in time, doesn't do anything good, just sleeps with this woman, comes back, and he's that good that when he came back, he was that depressed.
Maybe-
he fucking died 5 days later.
Maybe
And
he gave her a dog in a tin bath. And he's never had a woman who's done that before. He's never going to get that again, is he?
He's had an experience that he ain't never going to get back, is he? It's like, well, mate, try and travel back again and go and see her again. You've discovered time travel. Do not be like that depressed. You could fucking go and kill Hitler. You could do something amazing. You could save some people's lives. You could stop the Titanic from sinking. But what does he do with his time travel? He just goes and bangs
he gets-
Jane Seymour.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, that's...
if you could.
Well, yeah.
that
obviously
is going to be
choose.
on a perpetual loop, though, isn't it?
The watches.
Well, that's the thing. The watch should really be degrading because that's the only thing that is continuously going through time.
Well, it's a paradox, but it's
Yeah,
got a
it's-
special
yeah.
name, isn't it? Because that watch has never been created, has it? It
Yeah.
just exists within.
But
that
also
time.
it would degrade, so eventually that watch would be changing the loop because it's either going to break or like after so many
Stop,
loops
yeah,
it would
yeah.
just be dust.
Or it's because it was never created. It is some magical artifact which doesn't obey by the laws of physics because it was never actually created.
But what did that old woman hope to achieve then by saying, come back to me? Because how did she know what time time travel was.
There was a couple of things that could definitely made this story better. That woman should have said something that when he saw that picture, that's what made him have that reaction. So her coming to see him was the catalyst for it. But it was kind of like two unconnected incidents.
Oh, it's an unrelated article. It's an unrelated article. Within the banner headline. Yeah.
He had this thing with this old lady, gave him a watch, and then years later he saw this picture.
Well, they don't fucking about with that, do
been...
they? It's the opening scene, like literally this
yeah,
old woman
straight
going,
in.
here you go, here's a watch, make, like, you know, come back to me.
That scene, I quite like that scene. It was like a bit spooky.
A bit Sam Raimi.
It had definite intent, didn't it? It was like,
Dawn
it
of
set
the
you up
Dead.
for the film because you were like, Jesus,
It's
that
been-
meant something. What's going on?
When she tapped on his shoulder, though, like, everyone at the dinner party went quiet, didn't they? So that was. But yeah, so there was so many things for me that, yeah, like, you know, if you can travel back through time, man, do you know what I mean? I know he tried to do it again a little bit and he couldn't do it, but I don't think he tried hard enough, to be honest.
Thing is, though, he was so ultimately sad he died of a broken heart.
That's
I
bollocks.
mean, I don't buy that. I'm glad Murph. Have you read the book or just a synopsis?
No, just those of us that care about his podcast, Harv. We
research.
watch the entire films and do a bit of research.
I'm chipping in, aren't I? I'm chipping in right now. Can't actually remember what I was going to say now.
Probably for the best.
Like the fact that you sort of said that you knew in the book he's supposed to have this tumour, that never come across. But this guy's come back from the past where he's met the love of his life and he got there on his want to get there. Surely his want has got to have been a millionfold now he's been there. So the fact is he's physically not able, surely, because his drive to get there is enough. So
Well,
definitely.
The professor was saying that it takes a lot out of a person to do it. So I was thinking he probably wouldn't be able to do it again, and that's probably why he died as well.
That's better.
Do you think he spent so much time in the past that the longer you spend in the past, the more it takes out of you?
Like the sort of
Maybe.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade sort of thing there. It's like the night.
Yeah.
You know, like the longer you're around in the past, the time catches up to you when you come back to the future.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder what happened to his physical form in the 80s. Like, was he sort of lay there in bed like,
He had to have took him
when he
with
was
him,
sort of
didn't he?
sleep? Or do you think he disappeared
He
from the
actually
80s?
disappeared, yeah.
And did he reappear like at the moment he'd fallen asleep?
I would have thought so.
So he didn't reappear like 3 days later, as in the story.
No,
do you know
I
what
would
I
have thought he'd have come straight back.
Yeah, because they did say he'd been locked away for a week. So, I mean, I suppose it depends on how long he was there in the past and how long he was locked in his room after he'd come back, wouldn't it, I suppose? So
my other problem with this is there's no real story there. There's no real villain. There's that bloke. And if they'd done, I think what Lee said earlier, and if they'd done like he was a time traveller, so say like the bit like when they were having their like little chat and he like poisoned him and then he revealed to him or something, well, I'm a time traveller and I fell in love with the two and I've come back.
that'd be cool.
That would have been like, oh fuck, there's actually a story here now. Do you know what I mean? And there'd be like something for him to fight again, and that would have made the film so much better. But the problem is there isn't really a story.
They were going for the love aspect, I think, weren't they? They didn't devote enough time to the other. It was kind of all about. It was all about this love across time.
Pure love story. Wasn't it?
Everybody's relationship in it to each other is really weird. It's like it was written by like a 13-year-old. Or something who had no experience on how anything worked in the real world.
Because I think you could have done that thing of saying, right, this is just a love story now, if they've made the love story believable. But the fact that they were all just like, he was like some weird
creepy
autistic sort of stalker, and they fell in love in like 30 minutes. There was nothing there to be like, oh, these two are in love. They were just telling you that they were in love. Do you know what I mean?
It was very tenderly acted throughout. So they were always setting the love scene all the time, all the expression, everything that they said to each other was always kind of like, oh. So you could never get out of the way that they were falling in love. It was quite clever how they did that
as well with the script and the story they were given. I think everyone acted it really well. Like, he's quite a good actor. I didn't think he was cheesy or shit. The story was a bit cheesy.
Oh, I mean, it was so fucking cheap. I mean, yeah, it was just schmaltz, wasn't it? That's all it was.
He definitely just done Superman and maybe thought, well, they maybe didn't know part 2 was coming.
Yeah.
And was like, grab the cash while you can. I'll do whatever.
He's quite believable though, and realistic actor, isn't he? He didn't like ham it up.
It was very easy to forget he was Superman. He played the role well.
They filmed Superman 1 and 2 as one film, but there was a load of extra stuff, and they were like, we can make another film out of this. And Richard Donner was like, no, I don't want anything to do with it, and then they had a big falling out and stuff. They just went back and filmed some more scenes and repurposed what was like the second half of one big Superman film.
What, to make Superman 2?
Yeah.
Did they?
What a blag.
They filmed it at the same time.
This would be good if we ever do a Superman 2.
Why didn't you pick that?
I could have had it.
Pick this shit.
I stand by my choice.
I liked it.
You like what you saw of it?
I like that you went off piste. It was It was interesting.
Who's the guy who played the manager, the bad guy? He's very good. Christopher Plummer.
It was Christopher
Plummer, but I couldn't think of anything else that I recognised that he was in.
He was in Dragnet.
Dragnet, what was he in Dragnet?
Yeah, he's the bad guy in Dragnet, isn't he?
Yeah.
The priest?
Yeah.
Really?
Because he looks super young in this.
Yeah, I didn't recognise him.
But when I was looking back through like the films that he had done, he looks like he aged so quickly, like as in like in real.
You can relate,
life.
like.
Yeah, Dragnet. That's the only one I can think of. And like the old boy, the bellboy was.
Yeah, what else
he
is
was? He looks
I've got
like
a really
fucking...
obscure one. I don't know if it's him, but Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. You know, the guy whose job is selling videos of people who are going to die to their family. And I'm pretty sure he's one of the talking heads on one of the videos, the Life is a Mustard Burp guy.
Is he?
I haven't fact-checked that, but he looks like...
Of course you haven't.
Add 17 years. I'm sorry, I watched the film, didn't I?
Bits of it.
Yeah.
I've held my own. Yeah, 17 years on that, I reckon that's him.
William H. Mace is in there as well, apparently.
Yes.
With his first film role. No, I didn't see him. All Meg Ryan.
So the ending is very reminiscent of Titanic. And there's lots of parallels with the whole sort of story and Titanic. So obviously at the end when he dies and he has his out-of-body experience, then it goes to him and Jane Seymour meeting in the afterlife, which is obviously what happens with Leonardo DiCaprio at the end of Titanic. So if you look at the two films, like Titanic starts in the modern day, then goes back as she retells the story, same as Somewhere in Time, starts in the modern time, then goes back. There's an artifact in it, it's the medallion or whatever in Titanic, and then obviously the watch in this. And then at the end when they die, they meet up with each other in the afterlife. So there's a few sort of parallels to Titanic, and also Titanic set in 1912.
Indeed.
So there you go, many parallels. What facts have you got, Lee, for this film?
It was a $4 million budget.
Was it?
Yeah.
I can't see what that went on.
That suit.
Yeah. His hair.
And the hat.
It took 9.7 million at the box office.
I broke even.
It's actually got a real big following, this film.
Yeah.
It's got like its own annual...
They meet at that hotel,
Yeah.
don't they, and watch
Yeah.
it.
Well, it was
Your
filmed...
parents, your dad begrudgingly, but your parents would have rented that on VHS.
Mine wouldn't.
I think they've got a plaque there,
I
but
would.
if they haven't got that fucking picture up, they are missing a trick. You go there and fall in love
They've
with
got
it.
his hat.
Do they, on display?
Yeah, they've got his hat. Because it's filmed in a place called Mackinac Island, which is like...
Sounds like you fucking made that up.
No, I think it's like... Is it an archipelago? Is that what you call them? Like, where a group of little islands?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like North Michigan. Yeah, so it was all like filmed on there. And it was also illegal to drive a car on those islands.
Yes.
So they had to have special permission
yeah.
to drive a car.
All right, so he's directed by... I can't remember his name, but he's the guy who directed Jaws 2.
Yes.
And that was how the film got produced, I think, because nobody wanted to do Jaws 2 because it was going to be a real tricky follow-up. You know, he's quite a fucking coincidence, you know, they get attacked by...
It's fucking good Jaws too.
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. But yeah, so he directed that, and I think it's a payoff. He loved this script when he read it, and yeah, wanted to make this movie.
Who did the musical score for this?
John Barry.
Yeah, what do I know that name? There was...
James Bond.
Is it?
John Barry did most of the big Bond themes. Yeah.
Right, there you go.
It was Rachmaninoff, was it? It was based around like...
It's an old classical piece, yeah, and he
Yeah,
put
yeah.
it to that. But then I think his mum and dad died around the time that he was writing it. So John Barry obviously does the big horns like bah, 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 and all that sort of stuff for James Bond. So this was a bit like way out of his comfort zone. But his parents had died just before or something. So that's
I
why
wouldn't have
he said he
recognised it.
influenced
I just saw the name and recognised that, and I was like, it's in my head for some reason, but I couldn't think who it was. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
where you know John Barry from.
the musical score is nothing to be excited about.
No,
it is very soft, gentle music.
I don't like soft ass shit.
It's a very forgettable soundtrack. I will not be purchasing.
Well, it's a forgettable film, isn't it? Really.
I mean, I take umbrage with that.
Because you picked it.
Yes, I feel like I have to fiercely defend it.
Would you watch it again?
No, fuck no. Fuck no. But I wouldn't put anyone off from watching it.
Would you watch it once, Tom?
Shut up.
Will you watch the rest of it later?
I've seen all I need
Would you
to
finish
see.
it?
I've done it.
Defensive.
Then none of us will watch his film next week. I skimmed it. Like,
It felt like we were talking last week about like 80s stuff, a bit like 70s stuff. This felt like a 70s film that was like something you'd watch on a Sunday with your parents. It was just on TV. I think the fact that it was like
1 year after.
it was set in like 1912 also made it seem like an old film. Do you know what I mean?
Asma was such a fan of telling us last night, 1979 is not that far away from 1980.
It's true.
So it is very much the 70s stumbling their way into the next decade.
Oh, yeah. It's
and try and produce some rom-com period drama film.
Well, I mean, my problem is the story's not great. There's no real villain. There's no like arc really. There's nothing about the love story which involves the time travel. So he might as well have just been a bloke from that time, and he saw her and they fell in love, and that bloke punched him in the stomach. That was it. The time travel thing's just like almost needless.
That guy was a good villain. He was like a cartoon villain.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, I just want to say that guy who plays a bellboy, he looks like Geppetto. That's who I thought. That's. But yeah, very cartoonish. The villain.
That was one of the highlights. Was the villain, and Jane Seymour just being absolutely stunning.
It was worth watching it just to. I didn't know who she was before I'd watched it. It was just like, fuck me.
Is she British?
She's British American. She was born in something like Uxteth or something like that. It was definitely born in the UK.
Yeah.
I think she's 71. My quick math runs out. I couldn't tell you what year that made her born, but
a very striking woman.
She was born. Obviously spent most of her life in America.
And that's the other weird thing, I guess, about watching it a little bit, is when he's kind of catatonic at the end. And then when you think about what happened to Christopher Reeves with his accident, he was a skiing accident.
Horse
riding,
that was it.
He did a couple of roles though, didn't he? When he was like,
he still worked even when he was
I swear he did. I swear he did.
No, he did a couple of cameos. It was something like X-Files or something, but he was a guy in a chair.
Yeah.
Interestingly, they had asked him to be Gary Oldman's character in Hannibal, but he was like, nah.
Oh yeah, I mean,
really?
Wow.
That's what he was
would
like.
have been amazing if he'd done that, wouldn't it? I can see why he didn't.
But Gary Oldman was fucking good. Gary Oldman
was good at everything, isn't he? But yeah, obviously a real horrendous thing to happen to him, especially him being Superman as well. Do you know what I mean? Not that it would obviously be horrible no matter who he was, but you know, somebody that sort of athletic and do you know what I mean?
He was like a destructible man.
Completely robbed.
Fell by a four-legged beast.
Did you ever see that when he got his like Lifetime Achievement Award or something? It was like he'd been out of the public eye for ages, hadn't he? And then like he rolled up on the stage real slow, and everyone was like. And then he was like...
What you probably don't know is that I left New York last September, and I just arrived here this morning.
And then like, all the audience went mental, and it was like, yeah!
And I'm glad I did. Because I wouldn't have missed this kind of welcome for the world. Thank you.
Good for you, like.
I think another thing I was reading about Jane Seymour, she said in real life he was extremely charming, dashing, funny guy, and like I will stand by what he said. He does have at times a very weird looking face. But at other times in that film, he was very handsome.
You want to f*** him, did you?
If anyone's going to f*** you, Superman can f*** you, couldn't he?
But that little bit, you know, just before he gets taken away at the end, you know, when they're sat, I'd sort of been fast forwarding a little bit up to that, and when I stopped on that bit with him sat on the rug with her in front of the fire, and I was like, oh Jesus, they're both back in 1980. He looked very suave and very like sort of, you know, pretty stylish, and you know, he wore that hair well.
He did.
And the hat.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously sad what happened to Christopher Reeves. Every 80s movie, everyone's from Chicago.
I noticed that actually, yeah.
Don't see enough of Chicago these days. But you've been to Chicago, haven't you, Al?
I have, yeah, a couple of times, yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
A lovely city.
But we talked about that, didn't we, when we covered Ferris Bueller? They said in the sort of the making of or whatever it was, but they said that they very much wanted to make like Ghostbusters, New York was the character, and in that film they very much wanted to make Chicago the character, and it seemed to be like maybe whoever was financing these films, involved in the financing at the time, might have been trying to make that a destination or something.
I bet there was some tax breaks or something in Chicago.
Something to local in fucking Chicago, like you want people moving in there.
I mean, because obviously the main location in this film is that hotel, like the one you were talking about. But originally it was going to be the Hotel Coronado in San Diego, which I've actually been to on my honeymoon.
Nice.
You'd seen quite a few films, and I really recognise it. I think it was at the beginning of Thunder in Paradise. Disney based one of their hotels, you know, the Grand Beach Resort in Disney or whatever. That's based on that San Diego.
They should bring that Saturday afternoon programme back.
If I can shoot, it was class.
It was.
That was a Hulk Hogan one, wasn't it?
It was. On a speedboat.
Yeah, of course,
Thunder in Paradise. Absolute. We digress. So back on track. So anything else anyone want to say about Somewhere in Time, or do you think we've exhausted?
I think this is the longest anyone's ever talked about Somewhere in Time.
So you will not be attending the annual meeting.
Okay, yeah, so let's give it our scores then. So, Tarby, why don't you go first and tell us your score?
Well, Tone, I'm giving this a 5.
What would you give the second half when you see it?
Probably another 5. No, it's a 5 for me. It was watchable, but it was a film for my parents. and my dad would have hated it. Sure,
It's a film from my parents, but my dad would have hated it.
Yeah, it was a film from my stepmom, really. I did like the time travel twist. I did like that. The time travel, totally unbelievable. Wishful thinking, but I did like that it involved time travel.
Yeah.
Didn't get very exciting beyond that, but it did keep you wondering what was going to happen at the end, and at least they ended up together. Job done. Well done.
Well, I'm with you, Tom. I'm going to give it a 4. I don't think it was a very good story. I do think it was acted quite well, though, with what they had. I think Jane Seymour was obviously stunningly beautiful. That's probably the best thing about it. But the time travel's awful. I wish he'd had like a time machine, or he went through a portal or something. Just give me something rather than him lying down and thinking his way back. And it just didn't have a villain, no arc. So 4.
She should have come back to the future or something. Oh no, well, was she being old?
She should have thought her way into the future.
Exactly. It's easy done. It's easy done.
Apparently so.
I'm going to give it a 6.
Generous?
I thought it was alright. I quite enjoyed it. You ain't going to sit down and watch it again in a fucking hurry, are you?
Never.
But I would never deter someone from watching it. And do you know what I mean? It's a nice love story, isn't it? It's just a nice love story.
It's not a good love story. It's not a believable love story.
Do you know, at the end, when they're in heaven and they're holding hands.
They're in heaven.
They're in heaven. They're holding hands. I swelled up.
Oh Christ!
I was like,
were you tumescent?
I was like, this is fucking hell. Wow, this is taking me back. I forgot what erection's like.
I'm surprised it's only got a 6.
Yeah, 6 out of 10.
Yeah. You'll be watching it again.
Yeah, I might do at some point.
Try and relive what happened at the end.
Well, I think I might have watched the wrong one because the love scene I saw was very, very graphic.
Are you going to lay on your bed and wish yourself back to that?
Save us, Lee. Save
my pillow.
Oh, Jesus. And then die of sadness 5 days after.
My pillow would.
I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Oh.
It was like, when you're young and you're watching a 70s film, nothing makes sense. And that's what this felt like. It felt like it didn't make sense because it was old. And I just couldn't tune my head into what it was, and that's why I watched it. I was like, I'm not even sure.
What do you think's going on with that, though? Do you think it was just that it's a different type of filmmaking and a different type of visual language, or do you think nobody knew what was going on in the 70s?
I think people would have behaved slightly differently. They had different ways of telling stories, and I think we've gone so far past that you watch any films from below 70s and below, it don't really make any sense. My dad's always like, "Oh, watch this film." I'm not going to enjoy it, but I know that he would enjoy it because he was sort of close to that time period.
That's not true about every 70s
not
film.
Every 70s film.
But the point is, though, we're supposed to be objective about this, and that's the whole thing. It's kind of like, that's what I mean. So were you just saying you couldn't relate to it or try and put yourself in a headspace
I got to the end and was like, I really don't know what to make of that. And it's only when I've been talking about it now that I've decided what I was going to rate it.
Do you think now, though, when you've got kids who are brought up on TikTok and YouTube and the way that they edit stuff and the transitions, quick, that when they watch, say, films from the 80s now, that they will be like, fucking hell, this visual language and storytelling makes no fucking sense to me.
Definitely, 80s and 90s.
They probably think it's weird. We look at some 60s and 70s films and think, that's a bit not quite right.
The 70s stuff just sort of, a lot of the time it looks like a TV show, and it's got that certain aesthetic, do you know what I mean? The grain of the camera.
But there are certain things
it's real strange.
There are certain things you can't get over if you weren't there. You can try and empathise, but look at Bill. He will never know what smoking in a pub was, and there's nothing you can do to try and explain it to him. It's kind of like that. If you weren't there at the time of this film, it was I know there was things like Lost in Space and things about people going to Mars, but was 1980 a very early first time travel film?
No. I mean, time travel stories been going on for God knows how long, but obviously
a big one, like a Hollywood release.
Well, of course. There'd be quite a few.
The Time Machine.
The Time Machine, would be a big. But there obviously time travel's been a thing in stories for years. But
pardon my ignorance.
Yeah, but I think it is the way that they used to tell stories back then. Used to take a bit more time doing stuff, and they hadn't quite fallen into, I guess, cliches as much as.
You had a lot of heavy hitters of the 70s that have stood the test of time. You've got fucking Jaws and Alien and fucking Star Wars. You know what I mean? You've got those are the ones that have. Well, obviously they've
blockbuster
for a reason.
Yeah.
Again, this is a very 1980s Sunday afternoon film. Know, and you can't help but dress it up a bit when it's going to be our next feature film that we all watch and talk about. But really, even Channel 5 won't put this on a Wednesday afternoon. I've never heard of it.
I've never even heard of it.
It was relegated straight away.
Well, it does have its lovers out there, and if you're one of those that have listened to this and you're absolutely outraged how we've trodden and trampled on what you perceive as a classic, Alan talking absolute vulgar filth about it and its beautiful final scene, and do let us know in the comment.
Watch it with your partners.
My partner fell asleep and said, I'm going to bed after about game.
That's not the effect. That's
No.
not the effect you want.
No. So that's our thoughts on Somewhere in Time. So now we've got to find out what the film we're going to be watching next week is. And this time it was Tarby's turn. And what year were you given, Tarb?
I was given 1987, Tone.
That's going to be the best year of the 80s films.
That is a golden year. Golden year.
You can tell by the noise that everybody's just made, this is an impossible task. And I've spoken to Murph, and we've got very strict rules. It's very hard not to try and say about films when we're talking, but we do shut each other down until we've actually done the film. And I know that everybody's going to have a better idea. And what about this? And you should have done that. And that was it. And I was just like, do you know what? There's just too much like A-game stuff. And I don't want to be... You've got to work really hard to find a bad one. So I thought, I'm just going to go for something that's got a great actor in it. I haven't seen it in years and years and years, but it was always a great film when I watched it. And we're going to be watching The Secret of My Success.
Oh, class, man. Yeah. Cool.
Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, I haven't seen that for years.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, that was the longest intro. I was like, I had such anticipation. Then I was, he's gonna say it in a minute, but then he carried on.
My work here is done.
Whoa, I was right on the edge of my seat
I was
during
on
that.
tender hooks then. But yes, no, good choice that time.
As I remember it, a great film, but it's not. Like,
Alright, alright.
I think it was one of the straight-to-video films or something. Or
No,
I don't know.
it
Maybe,
came
I
out
don't know. But
theatrically.
he did a lot, didn't he? He was like sort of like Doc Hollywood, bang, bang, bang. He just
Yeah.
He did a lot of films. But yeah, this one, I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. All right then. So that is Tarby's selection, and that was going to be The Secret of My Success. So yeah, we're going to watch it. You try and watch it at home, and then come back and listen to the review with us and see if you agree. See if you disagree. If you disagree, let us know why and let us know your thoughts. So next up, I think it's me next. So we've got to randomly select a year. So we're just going to get our random number generator. Right, ready?
Yeah.
Oh,
85.
85.
Another beauty.
Nice.
I mean, let's face it, everyone's a beauty so far.
Yeah, no, I'm pleased with that. Okay, so yeah, next week then for Secret of My Success, and thank you all for listening to our review of Somewhere in Time.
Charming. Goodbye.
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 Bye. Richard!